So we are backstage on stage right. Keep in mind that your stage right, stage left is opposite because we are standing on stage facing the audience, which is out that way. So we're on the stage right side where you first come up. And over on this side, we have the curtain pull. We have our dressing room over here. And you're going to see a lot of names all over the walls here because a lot of people since 1975 have been putting their names on these walls. So if you're curious to see if anybody's been here, check the walls and check the ceiling because they write on the ceiling too. So over here is where a lot of the room is backstage. So this gets crowded during the show because everyone tries to pack over on this side. A little easier to hang out here. But as you'll see, there's not a lot of room in general backstage. But this side, we also have this handy dandy shelf, which does fold down. But this shelf acts, originally it was designed as a place to do our makeup. However, it's much better to use for props. We do makeup in the dressing rooms and all that. If we have too many actors can't do it in there, then they'll come out here. But this downstairs dressing room is primarily for the women, and there's a reason for that. Whenever we do a show, a lot of shows have a lot of women's parts, and they always have multiple costumes for women, whereas a lot of guy roles that are in the theater don't necessarily have a lot of costume changes. They'll wear one or two costumes throughout the whole show. So it's much better to have the women on the first floor who have to do multiple costume changes, sometimes very quickly, and they have easy access to the stage. So that's a lot of what goes on over here on stage right, is we're manning the curtain for the main stage. And we have a lot of people waiting here for their entrance, and we have the dressing room for the women as well. And then we have all of our props here. Sometimes we'll set up a table over here, but we have to be very careful with how much space we actually have and are allowed to use. So here we are in the hallway backstage. This wall right here is actually the back wall of the stage, what we call the cyclorama. It's a hard cyc, so it's a solid wall that's sheetrock with studs. This was built in 1975 by the volunteers when they bought the building with Harry Strong and put this together. So all the names you see back here are from 1975 onward. So there can't be anything earlier, even though the theater was built in 1938. This portion wasn't finished the way that we see it now until 1975. This back hallway serves not only as a crossover to get from stage right to stage left, but also we have these handy dandy costume racks. And these here allow us to have our costumes hanging on these, put our hats and shoes up above, because this is also a dressing room. So I mentioned earlier that the women are downstairs because of multiple costume changes, and it's usually very quick. This is another section because when we do a full musical, we can have upwards of 65 cast members backstage at any time. They all have to do costume changes. So with the women downstairs, they'll do, the few who have a lot of changes and a lot of makeup needs will be in the dressing room, and everyone else will be here in the back hallway with all their stuff hanging here, and then they'll go use the mirrors in the dressing room to do their makeup before coming out. So this space gets a lot of use, and it gets really interesting during a show because if the tech crew has to get from one side of the stage to the other, you got to do the sideways scoot like this and get all the way down the hallway because all the costumes are here, and there's usually a lot of women that are scraped up against here trying to let you past. So we often joke about needing to put a traffic signal, a red light, a green light, either end of the corridor so you know when it's safe to go through. So you have to plan out your scene changes, you have to plan out when you have to be there and for what side of the stage, because this gets really tight. It's a lot of fun. So here we are now over on stage left. This side of the stage is where a lot of the audio and lighting components are as well. So for audio, we have these lovely racks right here. These are the amplifiers. They provide the power to the speakers directly. So we get all the signal from the soundboard. It comes down to these racks, and then it goes out to the speakers from here. The only problem is you see that there's nothing protecting these. So during a show, we have to make sure there's no set pieces stored here, that there's no people waiting to go on stage that are going to bump into this, because we have to make sure that none of that gets touched. So it gets a little bit tricky back here. Once again, it's all about space and using every square inch that we have. But these operate not only our film audio, but our live sound as well. Certain amps are for certain systems, so you got to know which ones are on, which ones are off, and it's a great way also for troubleshooting. Sometimes during a show, if we have an audio issue, I've got a tech crew that's standing on the side of the stage. We can say, hey, could you check the amplifiers and tell me if there's any problems with them? And it gives us a way to be able to check immediately. But being in an exposed position, it can lead to problems as well. Speaking of little tiny space, we have one single tiny little bathroom that is directly behind the camera. And in that bathroom, unfortunately, there is no soundproofing. So when we are doing a show, there is a golden rule. We use the bathroom before the show, at intermission, and after the show, and somebody, usually a tech crew, has to be designated to make sure that the toilet gets flushed right before the show restarts. Intermission, flushing between doesn't matter. The problem is, if you flush during one of the performance acts, they're going to hear it all the way out on the stage. So unless you really want that sound effect to be really authentic, you can't flush the toilet backstage during performance. So one of those little tricks that we have to, maintain, be aware of at all times. It's just the fun part of being in an old building. So we're working on renovations that will try and improve that. But for now, that's the rule that we all have to abide by. So you got to use the bathroom if you're backstage. Use that one. Otherwise, before the show, before you get into costume, go out in the lobby and use the nice ones. That's the way it works. So from this side of the stage, we can go on over on this side, directly onto the stage from here as well. This side here has a low ceiling, as well as the other side did. The only problem is that here the ceiling is a little bit deeper going back that way, so we can't store tall set pieces back in the wings. They have to kind of sit here, which is kind of out almost on the stage, hiding behind the black legs. So you have a prop table over here, you have set pieces usually coming to right here. So you get this little narrow walkway from that doorway back through. There's not a lot of room to work with. And then right here we also have the stairs which go to the second floor, and you've got all of the men and the boys that have to go up and down during a show as well, and they have to be quiet. So we used to have the stairs didn't have any soundproofing on them. Now they've got some carpeted treads. So before you had to walk very carefully up and down the stairs because everyone could hear the thud, 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 thud as you went up the stairs or down the stairs. So whenever you're doing a musical and you've got all these kids in the show, that's another lesson we always have to teach the kids, because the kids are usually on the second floor, is you can't pound your heels when you come down the stairs like you would at home, because we can all hear it. It takes a while for people to get used to that. We have adults who still can't quite get that either. So it's, old building, small space, lots of tricks you gotta get used to put on a good performance. You gotta be aware of your space all around you. Here we are on the second floor of the theater. Technically, we're actually now at ground level. When you've been entering the theater, you're actually coming down towards the stage. You're actually underground. The first floor is all 8 feet underground. We are now on the second floor. We're at ground level, which you'll see the loading dock on the way out. Goes right out into the parking lot. At this height, we also have our fly lines here. Now, we don't have a true fly system. We have what I call a half fly system. That means that I can't fly a set piece that's sitting at the floor height of the stage and fly it completely out of view. What I can do is I can fly something that's 8 feet off the floor, which would be the second level of a set, completely out of view. So I can do half of what a full fly system would do. These ropes here are all cotton manila, and this is actually, I can say, the way that theater was done when this was built in 1938. I promise the ropes are newer than that. But it is a 1-to-1 ratio. There's no counterweights, there's no multiple pulleys to try and reduce the load. So it's 1-to-1. So if you've got something that's weighing 200 pounds, you got to have a 200-pound person or 2 people operating the fly system to pull it up safely. So you got to kind of design your sets and your tech crew needs accordingly to depend on what you have for your fly system needs. With these here, we have 4 lines on this side. On the other side, as you'll see, we have 4 more lines. And the way that works is these 4 lines here are 5, 6, 7, and 8. And these are the back 4 pipes that are hanging in the air. And the front 4 pipes, 1 through 4, are on the other side. We operate those over there. So you got to know which rope you're going to in a hurry. Now, there's not a lot of room up here either. I'm standing right next to the dressing room that's on the second floor, typically the men's or the children's dressing room as well. So not a lot of room. A lot of people are trying to use this mirror here to do their makeup as well. So a lot of times you got to make sure that the cast knows you're coming in at a certain point in the show to operate these fly lines so they can be out of your way as well. So good communication, a lot of coordination with the cast makes this all possible. If you don't have that, you're going to have some problems with your scene changes. Now the dressing room that we have up here also, as you'll see, has a ladder that goes up to our 3rd floor and the attic. Now the attic is over top of the house of the theater where the audience sits. There's nothing up there. It is dead air, but there is cables and stuff run. So unfortunately we can't use it for storage. It's not built for that, not safe for that. But it is an open air attic, so we have options for doing really decent installation and other options like that. Now on the 3rd floor, what we primarily do is we store our sets that we have for our repertoire shows. We have a couple shows that we do on a regular basis. We have a musical Christmas Carol that is written and directed by our own executive director Nick Turner. That is stored up on the 3rd floor because we do that show every year or every other year. Likewise, we also have Charlie Brown Christmas for the same reason. So we have the set, we built it once, we store it here, not in the scene shop because we use it all the time. We don't need the set pieces getting destroyed and rebuilt for something else. So on the 3rd floor, that is our repertoire shows. So those are the 2 basic shows that we have up there, which you will see. And then on the 2nd floor here is also the only working sink that we have backstage. This is where we clean out all the paintbrushes, wash your hands before and during a show as well. But there's no soundproofing because there's the stage right there and there's the sink. So you got to be very careful not to use the sink during the performance because everybody will hear it.